Bo Bichette has called out the front office and has demanded changes from the top. So we're going to break that down in this episode of Jay's Digest, as well as a report that has revealed that sides may be far apart on extension talks. So we're going to break that down and much more coming up next. What's up, Jays fans? It's Gosse, your host of Jay's Digest. And before we get into this crazy video, a lot of news has dropped lately, I want to quickly remind you guys and thank you for all your support. We're very, very close to 10,000 subscribers. So if you hit the subscribe button, about 73% of you guys aren't subscribed. It would mean the world to us. And if you're watching this video when it just uploaded, a stream is coming very, very shortly over the next couple hours. So make sure to tune into that where we do live call-ins. Now, let's get into the let's just get into the video because we have a lot to break down today. And let's start with the Bo Bichette quote. Now, this happened essentially after we had eliminated about 10 days ago from the wild card, but there's a reason I'm bringing this up now, so stay tuned to figure out that. Bo Bichette on what has to come next for the Blue Jays. We got beat up 2 years in a row in the playoffs, so I think there's a lot of reflection needed from the players, but from the organization top down. Everybody needs to reflect and see what we can do better. Now, this was, of course, before Mark Shapiro spoke out, before Ross Atkins spoke out, and all that drama has occurred, but he called out the front office right after the game. This was a press conference that happened like directly after the game between, the Minnesota Twins and the Toronto Blue Jays. And Bo Bichette demanded that changes occur from the top. You can see here the second part of this quote is the most telling. He specifically goes on to say, from the organization top down, which indicates that he essentially wants to see changes, at least has wanted to see changes, maybe from, whether that's the front office, management, coaches, who knows. But as you all know, if you've been tuning into our videos, Ross Atkins is returning, John Schneider is returning, and Mark Shapiro is going nowhere. So it's a bit interesting that, he said this, especially right after the game. Now, is he saying that they want them fired? I don't know. Is he upset in his time in Toronto? We also don't know. But what we do know is that he was not happy following that game. And the reason that we're bringing this up now, of course, it was 10 days later. I wanted to see what happens in the, the following days after the press conferences regarding this quote. And we can go back and look at what Mark Shapiro said a couple days ago about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette extensions. And when asked about possible extensions, Mark Shapiro declined to get specific, but said the priority is just to sustain the opportunity to win. Now, that part is fine. He was very, very elusive regarding, specific extension talks. And this is getting a bit concerning because for the past couple of years, we've been hoping that the Blue Jays would have, re-signed, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., extended Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s contract, And it has not happened. Same with Bo Bichette. They are free agents in 2025. Now, that seems like a long time away. That's just 2 seasons away. So after this season, they will be entering their final pay contract year where they're, of course, going to be demanding a lot of money. And if you're the Blue Jays, you do not want these guys to get into free agency, especially Bo Bichette or Vladdy, depending on how his bounce back year is next year and the year after that, because Toronto, luckily, they've been doing a lot better at getting free agents, coming to the team. It's not, the Blue Jays are a bit different than the Raptors, for example, where it's really hard to attract free agents. Toronto Blue Jays have been doing it. That being said, there's sometimes an inherent, people think there's an inherent disadvantage that a lot of free agents don't want to come to Toronto, which isn't necessarily true, but I would say it might be a bit harder sometimes. We sometimes have to overpay for these players. We gave George Springer the extra year. I believe we gave Gosse some extra money. But at the end of the day, if we get Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., let them go to free agency, then we might be setting ourselves up for a total rebuild, which if you check their video out from a couple days ago, would not, Shapiro didn't shut it down, and that's probably the alternative here if we're not able to extend these guys. But extensions are hopefully going to be near. Now, if you look at Bo Bichette and you look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Vladdy had a phenomenal MVP season in 2021. Obviously didn't win it because Shohei Ohtani is playing the Major League Baseball. But Bo Bichette had a great year. He's always been a phenomenal guy. And I think if you're going to extend one, I'm curious to see what you guys think about this. If you're going to give one of these guys an extension, I would personally give the priority to Bo Bichette. We saw his improvement as a leader last year, his improvement as a teammate, and his improvement at the defensive end. And he is one of the best hitters in baseball. So I think he's the safer bet. But again, you kind of want to maintain both these guys unless you're of the mindset that you cannot win with this core. But I think even if you're of that mindset, it would be a waste of assets to not re-sign / extend Bo Bichette or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And then you're going into the conversation of whether you should trade these guys, / do other things like that. So let us know what your thoughts are in the comment section about that. We might have a video coming up here soon about a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. potential trade, and if we think that's something that the Jays should do. But looking at a piece from an article from Ben Nicholson-Smith, and this is very, very interesting. It's essentially him reading between the lines of the Mark Shapiro presser. He said, even if the Blue Jays were closing in on an extension, this is in response to a question asked, this one in particular right here. So this kind of flows well. They'd aim to keep things private for as long as possible. Broadly, there's not much to be gained by announcing their negotiation strategies publicly, but at the same time, this reply was telling. The priority is sustaining the window of contention rather than structuring their plans around any one player. Now, this is super interesting to me because I am of the belief that, these two things work together. The priority is sustaining the opportunity to win. If you're wanting to sustain your opportunity to win, you'd also want to extend specifically one of Bo Bichette or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to extend that opportunity. These guys aren't old, 24 or 25 years old, accordingly. And you want to extend them, because if you don't, then you might be putting yourself in a spot where you're not going to be contending at all. You'll have an aging George Springer once Vladdy and Bo, if they leave in 2025. Now, this is unlikely that both of them leave. I do suspect that the Blue Jays, at the end of the day, the Blue Jays extend both of these guys. Who knows what the number is? I think Bo Bichette will be first, and then Vladdy won't want to sign a contract right now because of his down year last year. I suspect he's going to want to play a big part in this year when determining his contract, and then extend maybe the year before his offseason. But when you're looking at numbers for these guys, you're looking at the 200s of millions, 300s of millions, depending on the player. We suspect Shohei Ohtani's going to get $500-600 million, potentially, depending on how his arm is healing from his injury. I believe it was UCL and Tommy John surgery. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this, kind of unfolds for the Blue Jays. And this quote here was kind of the one that started it all right when the season ended. They got beat up 2 years in a row. Top down, everybody needs to reflect. And they did some reflecting. And this was before Ross Atkins came out and made a clown show of himself, calling out John Schneider and then saying that he's going to be rehired. So it's a super interesting time to be a Jays fan. The front office is in a little bit of shambles here because, again, the priority is winning, but they don't want to commit to extending one of these players. And I personally would have wanted one of these players extended, maybe even last year, specifically probably Bo Bichette. But the thing is, you could also, me and Peter were both of the thought that, maybe we should have extended Alek Manoah and just get him under contract last year after a Cy Young caliber season. And ultimately that would have been a horrible decision because now he's not even on the MLB team. He wasn't at the end of this year. He probably will be battling for the 5th or 4th starter spot next year. But it's something that, it's always a risk with these guys. And if you're of the mindset, especially you guys, us as fans, if Vladimir Guerrero Jr., we think that he's not going to be the 850, 900, 950, 1,000 OPS guy he was in 2021 and a little bit of 2022, then maybe the Jays don't want to extend him and they want to trade him and just move on. But if they think that he can get back to that MVP caliber status, then you're going to want to keep him for the long term, especially given his peripherals and his exit velocities and his stature as a prospect. So that was very, very interesting. And this was one of the other key quotes here. It's still way too early to draw hard and fast conclusions about what happens from there, but it's certainly imaginable that Guerrero will end up testing the market in 2 years' time. And even if he stays, some considerable turnover is on its way. This is a little bit scary. This was kind of the scarier part of the both of them. Bo Bichette, he didn't mention, Ben Nicholson-Smith didn't mention Bo Bichette there, which is why I am of the belief that not only is it smarter to extend Bo Bichette before Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but they're going to do so. I think they might extend Bo Bichette before the start of next season. But Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he's going to want to test the market and get the most amount of money possible unless the Jays throw a huge king's ransom at him. And I don't know if the Jays are in the position or they want to do that, especially given what they showed and what he showed last season. They haven't won a playoff of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., a playoff game that is. They haven't won anything. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has not been the player that he was in 2021, and some people are outlining that as a fluke. I don't think it was a fluke. I think that he has the potential to be an MVP 1,000 OPS guy. It's just that he has lost that a little bit. He lost the hitting approach, but the whole team did that last year, so you could blame Guillermo Martinez, you can blame the coaching staff, Don Mattingly, whoever you want to blame, the analytic department, Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, but at the end of the day, James Click and all those guys are not the ones actually swinging the bats. It is Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and as bad as an approach can be, he needs to be better at hitting the ball. It's the player's responsibility at the end of the day. Not saying that the coaches don't play a big part in that, but the biggest part is the hitters itself. And I'm just hoping that we're able to extend specifically Bo Bichette and then hopefully Vladimir Guerrero Jr. if he does not want to test the free agency. Because I'll tell you one thing, if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. ends up going to the free agency and the free agent market, that means that he's most likely not going to be re-signing with the Blue Jays, because if he was, that would have been settled beforehand. That's the advantage we have of having him and bringing him up as a player. You'd like to think that he'd give some benefit to the of the doubt to the Toronto Blue Jays, and if he has an MVP caliber season next year and we throw however many $400 million at him, he'd want to sign it. That being said, I'm not sure what the Blue Jays are thinking or feeling about a long-term extension in this very moment for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., because it certainly carries a lot of risk, having a below-average defensive first baseman who has not been who had a sub 800 OPS last year. He's still a solid player, but if you're paying him hundreds of millions, that is not the kind of guy you'd want to, especially off the performance last year. give me Bo Bichette for the extension right now. And I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. That will wrap up the video. Let us know in the comments section below if you'd rather resign Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., or someone else of this core. But that'll wrap up the video. If you want to see our video from yesterday, click the video on your screen right now. We should have a live stream going on in 2 to 3 hours if you're watching this video when it just uploaded. If you're not, go ahead and click one of the other videos on your screens. And thank you guys for watching. Your support has been unbelievable. We'll see you in tomorrow's video or later today's stream. Cheers.